All right, next item on the agenda is appearance by members of the public. I understand we have one person.
That is correct. If Zach Gittrich could come up to the microphone. Thank you.
To the most honorable and esteemed county board members, I am here today presenting the Central Illinois Research Collective, our official guidance regarding the SAFETY Act. We have released this guidance to assist local municipalities in interpreting and implementing HB 3653. It's important to remember this law was passed by majorities in both houses, implying that a majority of Illinoisans support it, and not just in Chicago, here too. We believe it is important for public officials to know that the working people of Illinois support this legislation and encourage public officials to embrace these reforms and implement them to the best of their abilities. Furthermore, public officials should be mindful that the working people of Illinois support efforts that increase police accountability, transparency, reform, and they desire alternative institutions to address public safety. You should have received an email from our organization today with the guidance. Of all the recommendations contained within the guidance, these are the most pertinent to the County Board, 11th Judicial District, and the County Jail. Begin the work to fully fund or more fund the Pretrial Services Department, initiate a hiring freeze of corrections officers, and invest in alternative first responders and deflection programs. The most significant change is the abolition of cash bail. Offenses are split into two categories, detainable and non-detainable. This doesn't have anything to do with whether you can be arrested for these defenses, but what a judge is required to do per statute when a defendant appears before them. The detainable offenses include all forcible felonies, including things like murder and vehicular manslaughter, all sex crimes, domestic violence charges, gun-related felonies, all new arrests when someone is on pretrial release. So if you were on pretrial release for a non-detainable offense and you get picked up again, then you can be detained, and any serious felony where there's a high likelihood of willful flight. These offenses ultimately add up to between 400 and 500 different statutes. Now, some will point out that even for detainable offenses, you still have to prove that a person is a risk to public safety or a flight risk in order to detain them. To be clear, that's the exact same way the system works now, except we're removing the cash element. The reason these additional burdens are placed on the prosecution is because everyone has a constitutional right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. Regarding Pretrial Services Department, the law requires pretrial service agencies to implement a system of court reminders. Reminders should be provided 1 to 3 days prior to each scheduled court appearance. Other services include check-ins, drug tests, electronic monitoring, and assisting people with transportation. We do discourage the use of electronic monitoring and drug tests unless they're absolutely necessary, as these are often tools for surveillance and punishment in the guise of services. We do recommend that judicial districts create protocols for court reminders, including emails, text calls, etc. We also recommend transportation assistance to and from be provided for those individuals needing it. Furthermore, the law creates a distinction between willful flight, i.e. intentionally avoiding trial, and simple failure to appear, and that happens more often than you might think. Currently, a failure to appear means a judge is required to issue a bench warrant, the police locate the individual, serve them the warrant, and then arrest and incarcerate them. The new system replaces bench warrants with notices to appear. Now, the same steps occur. Judge issues a summons, police locate the individual, serve them the summons. If, when they locate the individual, they are in commission of a crime, they can be arrested again. But instead of arresting them, they are informed that they must appear within 48 hours before the court or they will be arrested. Next are the use of risk assessment tools, also called RATs. RATs are algorithmic tools that use historical data to determine what a person's quote-unquote risk of failing to appear at court are. While the Illinois Supreme Court recommends their use, we strongly oppose this recommendation. While touted as capable of predicting individual behavior, these tools are actually incapable of making individualized prediction. They instead study data from many individuals and then forecast the aggregate group risk. A risk score therefore indicates that a person shares traits with a group who succeeded or failed at a certain rate. But the score provides no information about how a specific individual will behave if released. Because RATs rely on historical data, data which has been historically biased racially, these tools contribute to the racial disparities we see in the criminal justice system. Stereotypes, whether by people or algorithms, are necessarily overbroad and intentionally blind to the individual. And this is really important here. Being wrongly labeled high risk under these circumstances is particularly unsettling, since if detained, these arrestees likely can never prove that they are a false positive. Finally, county jails consistently have pretrial populations of about 90%. With the abolition of cash bail, we expect these numbers to decrease. County boards should initiate hiring freeze of corrections officers. Now, the guidance that we gave you also recommends a hiring freeze of staff, but again, these are general recommendations, and considering the situation at our local jail, we would actually recommend the opposite because there is a desperate need for more jail staff. there. The board should not fill vacancies left by retirements. The money saved should be invested into the pretrial services department to maximize its success. Implementing pretrial supervision will require commitment to sufficient staffing and other resources. Thank you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, or I'm happy to answer anything.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thank you.